Welcome into the New Orleans Saints podcast. You'll hear from players, coaches, broadcasters, and writers that cover the NFL on a daily basis. The New Orleans Saints podcast starts right now. Here's your host, Erin Summers.
Welcome into the New Orleans Saints podcast. I'm Erin Summers. Day 11 is in the books. Last day in pads, they had 3 padded practices, a day of shells yesterday, so 4 practices in a row. Get the day off tomorrow, back at it Wednesday, Thursday, and then off to Phoenix on Friday. Today's practice included a little more situational work. They did work 2-minute drill, end of game situation, where they had 1:15 on the clock. The offense had 1 timeout. They were down 30-28, so they really just needed to get into field goal range and then hit a successful field goal. Offense started at the 30-yard line. Quarterback Derek Carr went back-to-back dump-offs to Jamal Williams. Then he hit Taysom Hill over the middle. He got to the 50-yard line with 27 seconds left to go on the clock. He was able to connect with Chris Olave to get him to the 33. That set up a 48-yard field goal attempt by Blake Grupe, which he hit, so he won the game. As for quarterback Spencer Rattler and the Twos, they drove down the field, 4 straight passing plays, and then a couple handoffs, got them down to the 27. It was a 46-yard field goal attempt, however, it was unsuccessful. We've gotten a good look now with 11 practices behind us on that kicking competition. Blake Grupe and Charlie Smith are trading off days. We've seen Smith hit one from 62, and then Grupe hit one from 61 today. So both players have shown that they have the leg. It's been mostly about that consistency. Here's head coach Dennis Allen on the competition, followed by Blake Grupe.
I think it's been a good competition, I think both players have been a little bit more inconsistent than I would like right now. I mean, obviously, I'm expecting 100%, and so I think we still have work to do in that area. But both of them have talent, and I'm talking about just the field goal kickers right now. Both of them have talent. Both of them have really strong legs. Both of them have hit 60-plus yard field goals. And both of them have missed some ones that, we need them to make. And so I don't think we're settled at that position yet. I think we've got to, make sure that we've got a guy that we can count on in a critical situation to make the kicks that we need him to make to win games.
I know I rise and, I do better when I know I have somebody there to push me and compete against. It's part of it. He's learning a lot. He's obviously has talent. I mean, we can see that every single day he goes out there. But at the end of the day, it's all about, me and going out and striving to be my best and, just make it as simple as possible and just make a kick,
With the first preseason game coming up on Saturday against the Cardinals, head coach Dennis Allen said they will start to think about who they're going to play, how much, and divvying out those reps. As far as the quarterbacks go, it's going to be a lot of Jake Haener and Spencer Rattler. They have both been trading off between second team, third team every other day. Rattler did take all of the backup snaps today as Jake Haener was out getting the procedure done on the skin cancer bump on his face that he had talked about last week. Non-life threatening, getting that taken care of, and they expect him to be back at practice on Wednesday, which we hope is the case. With both of those players, it's been pretty equal throughout camp. Here's DA on the backup QB competition.
I think we got to let these preseason games play it out. I think we're trying to determine if we have a backup quarterback on our roster right now. I've seen some signs that I like. And yet, I want to get them into real life situations, under the lights, and see how both of these guys operate in that environment. So, I'm encouraged by what I've seen out of both Spencer and Jake. And yet, we haven't made any decisions there, and I want to see what they operate like under the lights.
For attendance today, we did see defensive end Peyton Turner and defensive tackle Nathan Shepard both back on the field. They were out yesterday with toe injuries, but they were full goes today in pads, did everything. So don't think there's anything to be concerned of there. Running back Alvin Kamara got a rest day, and then we're still waiting to see on some of these other players like Demario Davis, Paulson Adebo, Marshawn Lattimore, Kendre Miller, when they're going to get back in the fold. But again, they do have that day off tomorrow, so it's just another opportunity for them to rest and rehab. A lot of those players, though, have a lot of experience, so you don't want to rush them out there because they know what they're doing. As far as my guest today, it is former Saints fullback Mike Karney. He was at practice taking things in, so I caught up with him at the end, and here's our conversation. Mike, thanks for joining me on the New Orleans Saints podcast. How good is it to be here back at a practice?
It's phenomenal. It's brings back a lot of memories. A lot of the players I play with aren't necessarily out here, but there's a few that are coaching, and obviously Mickey's still here, so Freddie. So it's great to see some familiar faces and just be out here and be a part of something that you used to do, and an organization that gave you a chance at a college, and if you feel good about that, come out here and watching.
I saw you catching up with some people after practice just recently. Offensive line assistant coach Jari Evans. Our relationship has to go back a little bit. It
does. I have a totally different memory of Jari. He's going to be a Hall of Famer, just a matter of time. But I remember when we drafted Jari in first practice, he was so nervous, and in that moment, as a veteran, I'm looking at him going, I hope this guy can make it. And then in turn, look what he became, and look at who he is. So I'm really excited. It's great to see his success. It's good to see Brian Young. Brian Young and I we were tied at the hip when I was here playing. We were in the weight room all the time. Away from the field, we were going to see movies. So yeah, you're catching up with some old teammates that you have great relationships with, and that's really at the end of the day what you miss when you're done. And so this is coming out here. It just kind of rekindles that fire, and it's great to see that everyone's doing well.
Do you have any PTSD from training camp back at Millsap?
Not watching this. This is country club, and I was kind of John with Jamal Williams in practice. He's like, "Oh, this is tough. This and that." I'm like, "Oh, but 20 years ago, training camp was a lot more. It was a lot harder, bigger grind, twice a day. You didn't have all these rules with how many days you could be in pads. We were full day, twice a day, full pads. 6 weeks. We were in that." Sean Payton came in 2006. We were in Millsaps College. Heat index was 128 degrees. Probably the hardest training camp I've ever been a part of. But the game's evolved. It's gotten with all the new safety rules and stuff. I get it. But this would have been a luxury to have this type of practice schedule back when I was playing. But no, it's a grind no matter what. But it's good to see these guys working.
Yeah, you got a first-hand look at Sean Payton when he came in, implementing that offense there. How hard was it to adjust to a new offensive scheme?
It wasn't too hard. The terminology was a little bit of a change, but it was just getting used to it. Just the way he wanted things done. And he came in, man. He really set a high bar. Big expectations for us. We really wanted to change the culture. I was very fortunate to be a holdover from the previous coaching staff, and a few of us, Deuce, Brian, Ernie Conwell, and then we draft Jari Evans and Colston. Lance Moore was already there, and of course the guy by the name of Drew Brees comes. We sign him. We draft Reggie Bush, and we got Scott Fajita, Scott Shanley, Mark Semino, Hollis Thomas. They did a great job of keeping the core from the previous coaching staff, and then adding a great group of guys, and we really came together. And what we really wanted to do is to change the culture and change the trajectory of the organization, and that's something I think we all feel really good about.
It feels like changing the culture. Culture has definitely been a word that's been brought up a lot during the offseason, leaning into this year, and then the change of the offensive scheme. It kind of seems like the team's a little re-energized going into this year. How do you think that's going to help them?
Well, I think that's sometimes needed, and that could be the difference, or it may not. It's all about how the players and the coaches work together, and if they do that at everyone's best ability, at the highest level, then the culture will be changed. And I think that's, listen, it's hard to replace a Sean Payton, Drew Brees, and Dennis Allen was on our Sean's staff for many years. He knows what that was all about, and I think that he knows that model. And I think that just being out here today, you can see that they're really working hard at getting it back to that. And I don't I have no question about the fact that they'll be able to do that with the right leadership.
What looks different in this offense?
I actually like the offense.
Yeah.
I mean, Clint Kubiak's a West Coast system guy. I came up through the West Coast system. When I was drafted, Mike McCarthy was old school. Bill Walsh, West Coast. And then you look at, Coach Kubiak's history, being with Kyle Shanahan. You got the heavy run game, play action with some shot throws. I think that's fantastic, and I think it's something that you're going to need to kind of reinvigorate the offense and get the whole team going. And really, your defense sets the tone, but your offense is the one that really, puts people in the stands and gets people excited, right? And I think it was great to see today just how the offense was moving, running the ball, taking their shot throws, but staying true to who they are. And I think that's the biggest thing you have to do moving forward.
How do the fullbacks fit into this new system here?
This is a fullback-friendly offense. I was really excited to see a couple guys in there.
Apprentice
is in there. You have to be able to catch the ball. You got to be able to run block at the point of attack. You got to be able to pass protect. Those are things that were, in Sean's offense, they put a huge workload of that into the fullback, making sure that you understood your role, and so that's exciting. And I think that's obviously we're a dinosaur these days. You don't see a lot of fullbacks, but it's nice to see that Clint Kubiak is incorporating that in this offense for sure.
And we got two on our roster right now.
Yeah, that's two more than you see any other rosters. I mean, you look at the rest of the NFL, you're looking at maybe 3 or 4 other teams that really have fullbacks on the roster. So it's exciting to see that the Saints are bringing that back, because I think that's the foundation of the offense for sure.
All right, well, when I was telling people I was going to interview you today, every single person mentioned a certain game. I'm sure you're familiar with December 10th, 2006.
Oh, yeah, very familiar. Did I know that night was going to happen? No. I went in with the same mentality I went in all the time, just to do my job. I do remember Sean all week telling me, hey, they don't cover you in the flat, that is, that, and the other. Sure, Coach, I hear that. I hear that all the time. But wow, yeah, things really opened up, and it was a night I'll never forget, a night my family will never forget. Being able to show my 2 boys the clips of that game. I know a lot of people were upset in the fantasy world because they, why didn't you let us know? I had no idea. The opportunity presented itself, and I was able to capitalize. And the biggest thing I was excited about is we won, and that was a big game to kind of decipher at that time, the 1 and 2 seed late in the year, and we were able to kind of lock that number 2 seed up at that time, it was a huge game on Sunday night. And
I was going to say,
whole
Sunday
world was
night
watching
football against the Cowboys. It doesn't get much bigger than that.
It doesn't, and you had John Madden on the call and Al Michaels. I mean, I grew up listening to John Madden for years, so for him to say my name and hear that, I was like, oh my gosh, John Madden. But yeah, no, I'll never forget that night, and I know that was a big night, and I know Saints fans everywhere, they still reach out to me from time to time saying, that Dallas game, I still remember that Dallas game. But I like to look back at my career here and feel like I was doing the dirty work more than just doing a 3-touchdown game, because after that game I never did it again. So I knew it was probably going to be a one-time thing, but no, great memories and super fortunate and blessed to be able to be a part of that.
Yeah. How much do you still keep up with the Saints, follow them?
I try the best I can right now. I'm full-time dad, coaching my 13-year-old in Pop Warner, I'm coaching my younger ones in baseball and flag and all that stuff. I try to do my best. I do watch games on Sunday. I'm not as familiar with some of the transactions and some of the players. I probably got to do a better job of that. But this being out here today allowed me to kind of get more familiar with that. And so, but I definitely keep an eye on the scoreboard to see how they do every Sunday, because once a Saint, always a Saint.
Yeah.
So.
What's been the biggest difference you've noticed from your playing time to the way things are now?
A lot has changed. The game's changed. I mean, you got the dynamic kickoff now, right? And we had full time.
I don't think anybody knows what that's going to look like.
I know. I don't know either. I think we all got a glimpse of the Hall of Fame game last week, how that looked. I'm interested to see how it plays out throughout the entire 2024 season. When I was playing, we had the full 5-man wedge with a full-on kickoff where guys were flying down. So the game's changed for the right reasons. But yeah, I mean, that's just how this game has evolved to make it safer. And I'm a fan of that. We want to make sure this game is safe, make sure guys are having long, careers, and you know, at the end of the day, being able to capitalize on their opportunities when they get that chance.
Yeah. Thank you so much for spending some time talking to me, and for all the Saints fans out there, thanks for that Sunday night win.
Thank you so much.
Always fun to reminisce with some of the former players that show up back here at practice and just see that camaraderie between them and the current team, the staff. It's really fun just to see how big Saints Nation really is. That will do it for today's podcast. We have that day off tomorrow, so I'll be back with another one Wednesday and Thursday before we head to Arizona. If you missed anything, it's always on NewOrleansSaints.com or @Saints on X.
Thanks for listening to the New Orleans Saints podcast. Join us 3 times per week on NewOrleansSaints.com, the Saints mobile app, or you can download the podcast on iTunes. We'll see you next time, right here on the New Orleans Saints podcast.